And then Porthos actually didn't even come back for the second season. They sent another dog, a little heavier, a little less shiny, a little duller. And they thought nobody would notice. And obviously, nobody did. And the people that hated Porthos didn't care. That's really what's going on here. Hate the song, hate the dog, what else? Go ahead, what did you hate? Go ahead. You hate the sweater? No.
I just wanted to say, I can't figure out how to use that. This is not my first convention, unlike a lot of people, because I remember you from a previous fandom, Illinois, Wisconsin, Michigan, those sorts of conventions many years ago in Quantum Leap. I was going to ask a bit about Porthos because William, W.C. Fields said never work with children and never work with animals. And I wondered if there was a humorous anecdote you might want to talk about in working with the dog and being the first captain with a pet.
Well, W.C. Fields was basically correct. Dogs and children. I've worked with a lot of kids, a lot of different kinds of animals. Porthos was pretty easy because they kind of realized once we got into it that there wasn't a lot to do with Porthos. So they Porthos didn't work a ton. We used Porthos as an excuse to go down on a planet so Porthos could run into the woods and have a moment with nature. And then bad things happen. I didn't have a lot to do with Porthos. The biggest thing was they've hired a female dog to play a male dog, which I was like, how about make it a female dog? And let's not, so we don't have to mess around, but they didn't. So I've had a bunch of great animal stories and a bunch of bad animal stories. One of my favorite animal stories was when I was playing a chimpanzee in Quantum Leap, and I worked with a whole entire gang of fellow chimps. Boy, I don't take it seriously. And the female chimp that I played opposite was fantastic. But the first day of that episode, we were all locked in cages, and all of us. And we had a big camera shot that was going all the way around the outside of all the cages and looking in. And when they got about halfway through the shot, and the crew, who were a bunch of knuckleheads, I started hearing this boop, 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 boop. And what's going on? What's going on? The chimps had broken out of all of their little cages, and they had taken off around this whole warehouse like this, and were running all around. And I was sitting like a good little human, in my cage with my diaper on, having fun. But I've had a lot of good stories. It just takes a lot of time and extra energy. The hardest thing is to continue to play your part because you get so caught up in working with the horse or the chimp or the snake or the little kid who's crying and hates being there, and you're trying to say, it's gonna be okay, it's almost lunch, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I forgot what I was doing totally. That's what usually happens to me. Yes?
Good morning, Scott.